All right, welcome back to Module 3, Politics and Religion in a Global Context. Again, my name is Don Hudson, and we're into our third week. I hope it's been going well for you. Again, always feel free to email me or text me, give me a call. If I can't get you right then I hopefully will get back with you as soon as possible. My own personal policy is to get back to my students within 24 hours. It doesn't always work. But hear from me that I do want to hear from you, and I'll be glad to help you in any way that I can. All right, we're in Module 3. This module, we're going to deal with the whole concept of Iran and Iraq. Of course, this has been all over the news for more than 20 years now for Americans. And quite honestly, there are a whole lot of opinions but not a lot of education. And so hopefully by the time you end Module 3, by this Sunday night, you'll be much more educated and you'll have a better understanding of what's going on with Islam and what's going on a little bit more with Iraq and with Iran. Of course, now I'm taping this in 2015, and Iran has been all over the news. In fact, Prime Minister Netanyahu came and just spoke to Congress, and this even divided the tensions more between the Obama administration and the Israeli Prime Minister. And Netanyahu just won the election, and Netanyahu wants nothing to do with the arrangements that we are making with Iran, or at least we're trying to make with Iran. Mr. Kerry is over in Switzerland at this point trying to hammer out a deal with Iran. Well, what's going on with Iran? And what's the problem with Iran? And who are these Muslims in Iran? And why are Americans so terrified of Iran? And of course, I actually remember this. I didn't understand it very well at all years ago, but in the late 70s, there was a revolution in Iran. And there were individuals who attacked the embassy and kept hostages all the way until President Reagan came into office, and they finally were released. Well, Iran has been seen as an enemy to America, and as Mr. Netanyahu makes very clear, according to him, to Israel. Why are they enemies? Well, all right, let's complicate that even further. Probably the real mortal enemies to Iran would be the Saudi Arabians. Why do the Saudi Arabians have a real problem with the Iranians? And I'll tell you, as many times as I've been over in the Middle East, it's kind of interesting to see that the Saudi Arabians consider the Iranians, who are Shia, they consider them as being radicals and fanatics. That's the word that they use. Of course, this is in English, but they use the word fanatics. They're crazy. And so even right there, it's very important to understand that America has problems with Iran, vice versa, Israel and Iran, but so does Saudi Arabia. And so here, we have this issue of why would Saudi Arabia, they're Muslim, right, have a problem with Iran, they're Muslim. Well, one of the major problems that we see here is this rift between Sunni and Shia. And so most Muslims, not all, in Saudi Arabia, there is a population of Shia, especially in East Saudi Arabia. But most Muslims in Saudi Arabia, at least the government, the leaders there, the House of Saud, they would consider themselves as Sunni. Almost everybody in Iran is Shia. And so, again, you see this intertribal conflict between the Sunni interpretation of Islam and the Shia interpretation of Islam. And they, even though they are both Muslim, they have very different interpretations of the Quran, of the Sharia, so forth and so on. We'll talk about that later. It's also important to understand, and this is one of the reasons why we are studying Iran, especially in a class on politics and religion in a global context. We're studying Iran because it is the only nation that is a theocratic nation. All right? That's very important. They are ruled, yes, there is a president, there's a prime minister, but they are ruled by the imams. They are ruled by the religious elite. And so even though you have secular ideas and secular people in Iran who have in the past been oppressed and tortured and even killed, yes, you have secular people in Iran, but the government is religious. It's theocratic. And this revolution that happened in 1978, 1979, basically was not only a political revolution, it was a religious revolution. And again, we're talking about politicized religions. And so we have to study Iran as a case study in this idea of what it means for an entire government to be religious, an entire politic to be religious. And in particular, they're not Sunni, they're Shia. And so they even have a very different idea of the end of the days, of the apocalypse. And so Sunnis believe, actually, this is quite shocking to many Christians, most Sunnis believe that Jesus will come back in the second coming, not as God, but as prophet, but not the Shia, not the Iranians. They believe that the 12th Imam, who was occulted, he disappeared years ago, he will come back, he will be the Messiah, and at that point, the entire world will bend the knee to the 12th Imam, and every human being will become Shia, Muslim, or they will die. All right. Now, do all of the Shia believe this? Not at all. So, as we turn our attention now to, again, a politicized religion, it's important for us to understand Iran. We're also going to spend some time in Iraq. And in many ways, if you want to see what is called the clash of civilizations, it has been and continues to be in Iraq. And so in Iraq, you have the Kurds, who mostly are Sunni, and then you have many people, the Iraqis, who are especially from around Baghdad. They are Sunni. And then you also have a large population in Iraq. They're Shia. So one of the problems that we see in Iraq going on even to this day is not only cultural and national and racial issues, but we also have a socio-political issue here, and that is you have a mixture of Kurds, Iraqis, and Iraqis who are Sunni and some Iraqis who are Shia, and they've been violent against one another. And in fact, right now, in 2015, one thing that is on the news almost every single day, at least here in the West, is ISIL. Some people call it the so-called Islamic State. Others call it ISIS. I call it ISIL because I want to emphasize that L, which stands for the Levant. So it is the Islamic State in Syria and the Levant, which of course includes Israel, Lebanon, so forth and so on. So right now the hot topic is ISIL. Well, ISIL is Sunni. They are extremist. They are militants. And we know that they have been torturing and executing the Yazidis, also the Kurds, and also the Shia. So in many ways here, and this is part of what's so shocking about ISIL, is I just told you that there is one government that is theocratic, and that would be Iran. Well, ISIL has proclaimed itself as a caliphate. As a whole new government, and they believe in a strict view of Islam. They have no problem whatsoever using violence against their enemies. And so we're going to take a look this week at Iraq and Iran to see in I think some very tragic but also very powerful ways what it means to politicize a religion here on the ground.